Right, for Undeniably Raw, it's your boy John. Got
That's
Rhett
right.
coming in from Greenville, South Carolina. I'm in Iowa tonight with another edition of the Undeniably RAWCAST, which is our video series where we talk to inspiring and interesting people throughout the spheres of fitness, athletics, and active lifestyle. We're so honored to be joined by our special guest tonight, Mr. Tanner Burch, who is a former Division I All-American linebacker at Gardner-Webb University. He's also a strength coach, or he used to be a strength and conditioning intern at the University of Georgia as well as Georgia Tech, and he was a graduate assistant in the strength program at Gardner-Webb. So he has a lot of common interests with us, which is part of the reason we want to talk to him today. But also, he is a current country recording artist. He's a very accomplished musician, and I think a lot of you guys will like the stuff that he has. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But Tanner, thanks so much for being with us. How you doing, man?
Thanks, man.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. I'm doing well. I actually just got a workout in before I came in and got on the podcast. So I'm glad to be here, man. Doing well. And it's my day off. So I'm happily just hanging around the house and getting some stuff done, and glad to be with you guys.
That works out really good. I know I've been talking to your manager and to you a little bit as well about some of your shows that you've been playing. You play, it seems like just about every night of the week. You're staying busy. So we're glad you're able to fit us into your schedule. But so like I said, Tanner, I kind of want to talk a little bit about your early life. You know, you were a very accomplished football player. What drew you to athletics at an early age? And what are some of your favorite memories from playing sports, whether that's football or other sports for that matter? And what are some of your biggest takeaways from your playing days?
So my dad was also a collegiate athlete. He was a all-conference player at Mars Hill. So, and then my mom was a cheerleader. And so they wanted to raise us in athletics at a pretty early age. So I remember being on the t-ball team with my siblings and being on the soccer team and stuff like that. Always had football in my blood because my dad's a diehard football guy. So, but throughout my early childhood, middle school to high school, I've always been a three-sport athlete. I played, baseball, basketball, football. I kind of got rid of the soccer probably in elementary school, but those have always been my things. And probably about my sophomore year, I kind of got away from basketball and just focused on baseball and football. Baseball actually was a pretty decent pitcher. I used to, top out around 93 miles an hour. So, and then I was also doing really well in football. So then my senior year, I had a lot of success in both those sports. My senior year, I ended up tearing my labrum in my shoulder. And basically the doctor was like, well, you can get surgery here before football season and then maybe throw a baseball again, or you can play through the football season, get a scholarship and then, get fixed it afterwards. So I chose that route. I ended up going to the state championship game, ended up losing. That was a tough year. My arm was constantly, dislocating. And then, but a lot of that, the problem was, with baseball, I had like eight scholarships, and I was talking to like two MLB teams. But the thing about baseball is they don't give you like a full ride. And so, so I ended up playing the whole season and got in the All-Star game, got the Georgia Defensive Player of the Year doing that. And a lot of the big FBS schools were really apprehensive because I had just hurt my shoulder. So I ended up going to Gardner-Webb over Jacksonville State, Valdosta State, and Stony Brook, and what was their college? Oh, California, PA. So I ended up going there and going to Gardner-Webb.
That's awesome, man. What a great career that you've had. And throwing 93 miles per hour, that's unbelievable. I can't even imagine. That must be nice. Right?
Does your shoulder still bother you to this day?
Oh man, it's bad. I have like stage 3 arthritis in my shoulder. I can't fully extend my arm over my head because not only did I have that surgery, I ended up re-tearing it again in college. And then I tore my left one. So like I have a bunch of joint issues.
Hear you, buddy. I tore my labrum in high school too. I had surgery on it and everything. It still pops like popcorn.
Yeah, man. I've got some facet of frozen shoulder. So, once the road kind of calms down, I really want to kind of nail that down. But yeah.
So back when you were all involved in sports and everything all throughout high school and stuff, were you playing music back then? Was that something that interested you at the time, or is that something that's been newer in your life?
That's honestly just been new, very recent. I always had a guitar, but because I was playing so many sports and working out so many, like, you know how when you're playing 3 sports, you never stop in high school. And so I always loved music. It's always been a part of my life in a big deal, in a big way. But it really didn't come until I was sitting in my apartment doing medical sales. And I was, in Nashville, ironically enough, that I ended up picking up the guitar after my grandmother died. She gave me her 1985 Ibanez and a Dan Seals record. And like, I just started playing like 2 or 3 hours a day because I really had nothing to do. I was in a long distance relationship at the time, so I wasn't trying to go out too much. So I just kind of sat and got the hang of it pretty quickly. I learned it in about 2.5 months, which I still don't know how it's done because, I watch people pick up guitar and it takes them a while to learn it. And for some reason, I just learned it quickly. And the songwriting aspect came pretty naturally because I've always been a pretty decent writer. I even got like a college award for it, for English literature. Even in middle school, I won the county for a poetry contest. So the songwriting aspect kind of came natural. I've always been a writer, but like as soon as I put it to a guitar, man, it just kind of just spurred out of me.
So this is kind of a question I was going to bring up a little later, but when it comes to your songwriting process, is the music first or the lyrics first?
So what happens is it's kind of it's a 2 and 2 process. You always tell people, like, if you're going to write songs, you have to write all the time. And it's not necessarily everything that you write is going to be a song, but sometimes that poetry, you pull those ideas into a melody. And what happens usually for me, I come up with a melody and it pulls something out of me. It pulls an emotion out of me. So for me, the writing is there, but the song doesn't come complete until I find a melody that just absolutely fits. And then it starts just pouring out of me. And it's like and when that happens, I have to do it right then and there because I'll lose it. So there's one time I was writing a song, and I wasn't writing a song. I was watching Django Unchained, and I came up with this crazy story about the Harlem Wars back in the 1970s. And I had to sit there and write it and figure it out for 3 hours, or I was never going to finish it. So it's one of those things. Is like when it comes, you have to sit down, you have to do it, and then hopefully you complete the song out of that.
Nice. We saw you got 2 songs on Spotify right now. We've been listening to those a little bit, and then we also saw some of your songs that you did at the Gatlinburg Songwriters Festival, I believe.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was last year. That was a blast.
Yeah, that looked really cool, like a really cool event. And I know me and Rhett actually really like your song "Coffee and Crown." We like that a lot. Obviously, that was written in a difficult time of your life. I don't know if you want to divulge any of that, but that's definitely, that resonates with us. It's very real, very raw. We really appreciate that. In a song, you're kind of known for being very honest with your lyrics, and we really like that. And I have been told, I was talking to your manager Jeff, and he mentioned that you've got a couple of new songs that are coming out soon, which I'll talk about here in a minute. I'm curious to know this. There's been several college football players who have kind of made that same transition into country music, and I wonder if you draw any inspiration from guys like, and these guys don't necessarily play your exact brand of country music for sure.
Yeah.
But Riley Green, Co Wetzel, Chase Rice, all those guys played at I guess Co Wetzel, the D2 level. Those other guys at the D1 level. Did you get any inspiration from seeing what those guys did? Is that something you ever thought about?
It never crossed my mind when I started doing it. I am mostly pulled from guys like Waylon Jennings and like Merle Haggard and Cody Jinks and Tyler Childers and like that raw country sound. But I do like Riley Green. I think and like he actually played football with my cousin at Jacksonville State.
Okay.
And seeing the journey those guys have, and then like once I saw that, with Chase Rice, and I didn't even know Ko Witzel play football until like a few months ago. He doesn't really look like a football player anymore, but the journey they've had, I think it has definitely inspired me. I think country music is, especially at the Nashville level, is a lot more personality type and your ability to produce songs. So those things, those were very inspirational. And then like, I think Toby Keith played some football, Trace Atkins played some football. And so, I think the rawness of football can transfer to the rawness of country music. It's all blood, sweat, and tears in football. And like, if you can transfer that into songwriting and making music, it works pretty well with the country world.
Well, the songwriting for sure, but also just the resilience that you have to try to cut your teeth in this business, because it's obviously incredibly competitive. I know you play in Nashville a lot, and I mean, it's what everybody's there to do. And I know you've been in situations where it's like there's a lot of people on a football team. For you to be that guy, like, I don't know, it just takes a special person to be able to stand up to that competition and push through.
Absolutely. Resilience is a good word there, John.
And that attitude really transferred over, because I remember when, like, for example, everybody goes into like the freshman class and they do a presentation of their goals for what they want to accomplish in their years at college. And so every one of them said they want to be all conference, all American. Well, it's the same attitude. And when you go to Nashville, everybody wants to be a big time country singer. And so, but the difference is like, what are you willing to do to get to that point? What are you willing to, are you willing to like eat ramen and sleep in your car? Are you willing to like sell most of your stuff and get uncomfortable? It's the same attitude when I was playing football. Like, I was the guy staying in the room studying in the film room. I was the guy working out, doing extra work, and willing to get uncomfortable. I think, a lot of people in the music industry, they just want to be studio writers or studio producers, or they just want to play in Nashville. They want to get on the road and live that life. At the very beginning stages, it's hard. You're taking showers in gas stations. You're sleeping in the back of your truck. You're eating ramen noodles and cut up hot dogs at a gas station. You're having to take shower. You're having to use your Planet Fitness. You're having to go to Planet Fitness because you can't really afford anything else, and they're all over the country. And you shower there. And so, how uncomfortable are you willing to get? Because the old school people always say you got to pay your dues. Well, with this music thing, the way you build a fan base and the way you build your songwriting is you have to struggle. That's the same way you gain how you get to be all-American, all-conference player. You have to be willing to struggle. You got to do the extra things, and you got to be willing to do the things nobody else is willing to do. And you're not too good for anything either. Everything's an opportunity in my mind.
I hear you, man. That's very inspiring to hear. Rhett's having some connectivity issues. We'll see if we can get him back in here in a minute. But you said you were working in medical sales when you kind of started to pick up the music thing. And prior to that, I'm wondering, were you interested in becoming a head strength coach? I know when you were doing all the intern stuff, and then also I think you did some stuff in the private sector with strength and conditioning. Was that kind of the original plan? And how'd you end up in medical sales? And then like, how did that all come to be?
Man, your 20s, I would say this, because I'm coming into my last year, my 20s. I mean, I'm turning 30, and I'll tell you, your 20s are meant to be, trial and error. And of course, I want to be a pro football player, but that didn't work out. Blew my knee out. And then originally, I wanted to be a head strength coach. I wanted to do it. I wanted to be it. I thought it was something I would enjoy. But as I grew older and started seeing the profession for, you don't have a good work-life balance, and you get paid pennies, and it's hard. It's hard to get to that upper level. Like, there's 123 FBS schools in the country, and my specialty was definitely football. And man, there's probably like full-time paying positions in that. So if you do the math, I'm not really that good at math, but I mean, that's somewhere around like 500 positions. And like, there's a lot of people in the strength conditioning market. And it's not that I think I could get there. But just being in there and like, it was wearing on me. I remember being at Gardner-Webb when I was a grad assistant. I was getting paid $400 a month. I was having to wait tables, bounce, bartend, and I was getting my master's, and it just became too much for me. Mm-hmm. And we had some family issues going on at the time, so I didn't want to give up on it yet. So I went back to my dad's and went in the private sector. And again, it's just it's an interesting schedule. I would work from 4:30 to 11:30, and then 4:30 in the morning to 11:30 in the morning, and then I would go from 3:30 to 8:30 at night. So it wore on me a little bit. I got kind of burnt out, especially when like you're working so hard, and it's rewarding in a lot of aspects, but taking care of stuff at home is when you're going to sit down at home, you want to be in the situation where you're taking care of business. And so I wasn't able to keep that balance with that. So I ended up getting out of it completely. Mm-hmm. And I went to medical sales, went to the corporate world, which I think everybody does. Everybody goes to the corporate world at some point. And the sales, that's a cutthroat business within itself. And it just was not making me happy. And like I said, man, your 20s are about finding what suits you, what's going to suit you. Because I did everything from being a strength coach to a private sector, to the medical sales, to a bartender, and I went back to carpentry for a while. And then this started blowing up, and I decided to go for it.
So you worked a variety of different jobs, and then you finally found something that you really enjoy doing with the music stuff. And I'm really glad that you've kind of found what seems to be your calling, at least for the time being and for the foreseeable future. And I'm really glad that you found that. I'm curious to know what some of your favorite places you've played have been. We talked about Gatlinburg, some of the things you've been doing in Nashville. We talked about you're really familiar with Greenville. You played in Greenville at all?
Yeah, I actually just played in Greenville this past weekend. It was a pretty awesome show. Played over at Southern Side Brewing. It was a blast. But as far as my favorite places, still to right now, Clemson Tigertown Tavern has been one of my favorite places to play. And Clemson, those kids, I mean, they packed that place out. It's no less than 300 kids every single time. First time I played there, I was like, oh, wow, this is a lot. And that kind of intimidated me. So that's been one of the best places I played at. And then, of course, playing at the Gatlinburg Songwriters Festival was amazing. I got to meet a lot of George Strait's writers. I got to have dinner with Steve Dean. Got to be in a little picking session with Danny Wells, who helped write, Check Yes or No. So I got to meet a lot. I got to meet Tony Arata, who wrote for Garth Brooks. So it was a great connection there. And then even some of the songwriters that I met there, I bump into them in Nashville all the time. We always like to talk and catch up. I definitely love playing on Broadway. I've enjoyed that experience. It's just, you feel like you're doing something when you're on Broadway. You feel professional. Mm-hmm. You feel like you're actually like in the mix of the best in the country, which isn't always true, but there's some very talented people in local spots that can do just as well on Broadway, but it just feels different there. And then one of my other favorite times was when I played at the Masters, and had a great time during that week. A lot of fun, really big shows. So anytime I get in the mix of a situation where like a football game's going on, or like a NASCAR event, or like a golf tournament, or like during the holiday weekends, everybody wants to go to Broadway to play, and I get those big energetic crowds. Those are always a lot of fun to play at. But definitely got a soft spot for the college kids. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I love Triple T's. I spent a lot of time there when I was in grad school at Clemson. That me and Rhett both actually. We've lost Rhett for the remainder of the call, unfortunately, but he would definitely be excited to hear about you playing at Triple T's. That was one of our favorite places for sure. I'm curious. So in your recordings, we've listened to a couple of your songs on Spotify, like I said, and there's a lot of instruments going on there. Do you have a band that tours around with you, or do you pick people up when you go places, or do you just play by yourself most of the time? How's that work?
I play by myself most of the time. And it's kind of like and it's kind of a business decision at that point. Cause, you kind of, I always tell people play by yourself until you don't have to. You can make a really comfortable living if you play by yourself and play around. And then once you start getting more attention and that demand starts to get higher, that's when you start adding band members. So I started playing full band shows down Broadway. But literally like with those Nashville shows, you just pick up artists. Like you don't even practice, you just pick up and go. But I do have guys that here in Chattanooga, I do have guys that I would like that are my guys for recordings. I have a couple steel guitarists. But those are my core group. Obviously they have day jobs, so I can't make them work around my schedule being a full-time musician. So that's why I have to outsource and go to Nashville and use a lot of those guys. I even picked up George Jones's old steel guitar player. So that was very exciting. But most of the time it's just by myself, and it's just because a lot, it's expensive to drive around these days. That's no secret. And so for me, the cost of being on the road and the cost for myself, it just seems more efficient for me to do more solo shows. That's going to change in the future. I'm probably going to be in about 10 or 11 music festivals next year that are going to need a full band. But for now, it's just, if I want to keep the money rolling in, I gotta play more solo shows, and then those band shows will come down the road.
Yeah. So one thing I'd like to kind of ask you about, and I don't know if this is an annoying question because I feel like this might be, I don't know, this is pretty stereotypical. If you had to compare yourself to a couple other artists right now, I know you said that you get a lot of inspiration from the outlaw country guys from the 70s and everything, but who would you say your brand, first of all, what is your genre, I guess, of country music, like your subgenre? And then who are some of the guys that you would compare yourself to, I guess?
Well, okay. I think the genre, I mean, I have kind of this thing. I mean, it's country music at its core, but I have like an outlaw country type of vibe to it, but I kind of do the mainstream thing as well. So like the formula I've been doing lately is I release kind of a mainstream type song, and I release an outlaw country song, mainstream outlaw. So I'm kind of doing both because, I'm an honest writer, I'm a storyteller. And then if the guys that the sounds that kind of pull off of, I've always loved the Waylon Jennings sound and the way his Telecaster always sounded. I love steel guitar. Love fiddle. So you're always going to hear those rootsy stuff on my tracks. I'm never really going to go to any kind of synthetic, percussion. It's going to be a lot of rootsy instruments. As far as my voice, I can't really pinpoint it. A lot of times I can sound like Waylon or like Chris Stapleton or Merle Haggard or stuff like that. But I have all those undertones when I need them. But for the most part, my voice is pretty much just unique in my own way. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's definitely its own sound. And so it makes me stick out. It's funny because like I never worked on it until I started playing guitar, and the voice is kind of a lot like a muscle. The more you work it, the better it gets. And I always tell people play live, and your voice will get better. But as far as who it sounds like, it's a mixture of guys, but I definitely pull inspiration from like Waylon Jennings, Chris Stapleton, Merle Haggard, Cody Jinks, and then of course I love me some Grateful Dead.
Oh yeah, there you go. Well, about these, you got 2 new singles that are coming out. You said probably towards the end of August, I believe you said.
Yeah, one's gonna probably be at the beginning of August. We're wrapping that up this week, and then the other one will probably be at the end of August. So the first one is called Boots in Hands, and that's a song that it's about kind of the attitude of working hard. My dad always said, you always can tell a man by their hands and their boots, especially like their handshake. But if they don't have pink knuckles and scars in their hands and scuff on their boots, and sturdy hands, they're probably not willing to do the hard things in life, to sacrifice some skin to do the hard things. And so it really just it sets the story about my dad, always working late, coming home with his hands bloody and sawdust all over him. And us watching Texas Ranger, and me asking him what makes a man. He gives an explanation of what manhood does. Because I feel like as our generation has lost sight of what it means to put the nose to the grindstone and actually putting in the work and not being entitled to the things you get in life, and that you really have to work your rear end off to get certain things. And so this song is just reiterating that attitude and kind of bringing it back. And something I would tell my kids, the chorus is very personal, very emotional. So I'm super excited about that song. And then the second song is called Country Stereotype. And it's kind of like my opinion on what's wrong with country music. I feel like it's gotten away from storytelling and just storytelling and the honesty, and it's more of like a product that talks about beer, chicks, and trucks. And when people listen to country music, they want to hear something that hits their soul and feels familiar. And sometimes the party songs get kind of old, or the oversaturation of just it doesn't feel like it's country. It feels like it's more like poppy or whatever, which there's something wrong with that. It's just, there's a place and a time. So Country Stereotypes kind of like me picking apart like what it means to be a country artist, and like what I think the direction needs to go.
I think we're probably heading in that direction personally. I mean, look, you're playing in Nashville a lot, where honestly, a lot of those stereotypes kind of stem from the Nashville country artist,
Yeah.
But it seems like the music that you're playing and the product you're putting out there is being very well received by people in Nashville. I feel like people are craving that. I think people are really longing for that. So I think you're definitely gonna give people what they want with what you're doing. So I'm excited to hear those new two songs when they come out. Do you think they'll be on streaming? How can people find those songs when they come out?
Oh yeah, they'll be on all streaming platforms, from iTunes, Spotify, to Amazon. I make sure I put it out on all platforms so it's available to people. And so that'll be out in August. And then I'm working on 2 more projects. I should put out 4 more songs for the year ends.
Very good, man. I'll kind of close with this. Do you have any advice? Well, this could be kind of twofold. For the kids that are thinking about going the original path you were going to take, which was you were going to work in athletics and strength and conditioning, do you have any advice for people who are thinking about doing that? And then once you've kind of addressed that, kind of close us out with any advice you give to somebody who wants to do the route that you're doing now. What would you say to young people who are aspiring to do one of those 2 paths?
I say for kids, obviously, dream big. You're young. There's a lot of potential there. And, I think it always takes hard work. It's always going to take hard work. You got to be glued to the weight room. You have to be glued to doing the speed work. If you're going to play football, you got to be glued. You have to be glued to the film room, even at the high school level, and especially the college level. If you want to make a difference, if you want to stick out, you have to be objective about it. You can't get too egotistical. You gotta be realistic about what level you're at, and you have to figure out how you can stand out. And but also don't let it get to your head just because you play a sport. Don't let it get to your head that you're above people. You're a servant you're meant to be a servant on this earth. So just because you play a sport doesn't mean you're above people. And it's going to end one day. It's going to end one day. And that was my I spent 2 years trying to figure out myself, because I didn't know who I was without sports. So you need to have conversations with your parents, with yourself, with your significant others, like what you're going to do when it ends, because it will end, whether you make it to the NFL or not. like at some point, even if you make it to the NFL, it's going to end. So you have to have those conversations. You have to make that plan, and you have to realize what you really want, because otherwise you're going to be scurrying around trying to figure out what you want to do. And that's, that takes a process. And so while you're enjoying sports, while you're working hard, figure out what do you enjoy? What doesn't feel like work to you? And that's a hard thing to find. But if you want to be successful in sports, dedicate your life to it, because you only got a small amount of time to do it, very small amount of time, and then it's gone. High school and college sports are unmatched, because you grow up with those guys and you only have a small amount of time with them. And I miss my college friends all the time, man. I ain't found a group of guys like that since I've gotten out of college. And that's, for my advice is enjoy it, have fun, take it seriously, but don't let it affect your life. And most of all, enjoy your friends, because you're going to miss that afterwards. And as far as the music thing, you're gonna have to work your end off. You need to get on the road. You need to do as many shows as you can. You can't half-ass it. So half-end it. Sorry, half-end it and expect a result. Same thing with sports. You half-end it, you're not going to be as successful as you want to. Everything is opportunity. Obviously, you have standards about where you play, but I see if it's an opportunity that you can do it. Obviously you have to make a plan to do it. You can't just be like, I'm going to be a musician and then sell everything, and then you only have 2 gigs a week and you're broke and you can't get anywhere. You have to be a salesman, and I can't emphasize that enough. You have to, before I got a manager, I used to send probably 100 emails, like a week or two. Like, it's just as much as a business as it is as if you were selling a medical product. You got to walk into places. It's going to be personable. Like, just because you can sing doesn't mean you're above things. You have to work at it.